Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning.
Good morning, Leo. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. It's nice to see you on this wonderful shining morning. I've not seen you in ages. How have you been?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I've been substituted in this morning because the ladies can't join, but always happy to, my friend. Yeah, great to be here.
Like a sort of substitute teacher, right? Coming in. That was always the toughest gig. Remember that? You'd go and sit next to your mates. You'd wind them up about stuff. I bet you were awful when the substitute teachers were in.
I was just going to say, are you going to start throwing things at me now and just being really cruel for the next half hour like you would be a substitute teacher? Thanks, man. Thanks. Appreciate it.
We'll see. How you been though? Summer of love, summer of sport. Enjoying yourself?
Summer sport, yeah. I got the Euros. We won't talk too much about football. We got Wimbledon, the Olympics coming up. We're going to talk about the Olympics today. And it's, although this should be a quieter time for scale than it actually is. We're heavily planning our next few events. But yeah, great. Sun is shining. Life is good.
What's next? What's the next scale event?
We're going to scale Dubai in early October. So that's very exciting. First timer, so we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I want to talk more about the industry in Dubai. Let's save it for a slightly later week, maybe when you get more into the planning of it. But I think it's a really interesting market. Europe is becoming increasingly regulated. I wonder if we're going to see software companies and property managers start to drift in that direction more. Great, man, great, and enjoying some downtime with the kids. That must be nice. Are they school holidays already?
School holidays, yeah. So that's, as I think any parent watching this, yourself included, will know, especially when they get to school, something we never appreciated as kids when we're off for the summer. So, yay! But the parents are probably not going, yay! Probably thinking, oh my God, there's 6 to 10 weeks of thorough planning and life balancing. But it's an easier time for us at scale doing that. So all is good. But look, yeah, family is priority, and it's great to spend time.
We haven't got there yet. We're still in nursery, so we don't get the holidays. So we get 3 meals cooked a day at the nursery, and she comes in the evening. Although I think she's kind of turning into a teenager. Her tantrums have moved to being like just quite sassy demand. It's great to watch. I honestly, she's brilliant. But yeah, we were walking the other day, and she was, just the way she was being. I was like, this is. They change so quickly, don't they? Anyway, we won't talk. I could talk about Sadie for the whole half an hour. She's so interesting. But basically, we walked past the bagel shop in our neighbor, and she was like, "Dad, I want a bagel." I was just like, "What are you doing, asking me for a bagel? Like you're some sort of teenager? Like you're about to go home and have dinner?" She's not even 3 yet, and she's like, "Dad, go and get me a bagel." I'm like, "No, absolutely not." Honestly,
bagel with cream cheese and salmon, and
no. These kids are hideous, right? They're hideous.
So yeah.
Okay, mate. So we are definitely going to talk about the Olympics coming. I'm really excited. Are you much of an Olympics watcher?
I am. Yes. Yeah. I'm thoroughly looking forward to it. Yeah. This is probably the first year that I will be able to really get involved and watch for 2-3 solid weeks, whatever it is. So athletics, love it, absolutely love it. And some random sports I really get into. I love hockey. I played hockey a lot when I was younger. Really enjoy that. And boxing. Generally, a lot of sports where Ireland have a chance of a medal. So boxing is always up there. Rowing will be a good opportunity for Ireland, and the athletics. We've got a few up and coming. So yeah.
Sonia O'Sullivan still doing it, is she?
She retired a year or 2 ago, but we have some big names. So yeah, it's exciting times.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love all that. Women's football.
Athletics person?
I am. I love it. But I think the women's football is the best thing in the Olympics, isn't it? Because they get a really good standard of the professional player. And then it's irritating to me that the UK never enter the football. I know we did for the men. For the men, we never enter, so I don't really bother with that. But the women's football, we've got a good side as well. I can imagine we'll do quite well this time. So yeah, I love it. I think the Olympic summer is always very nostalgic, right? Because you remember sat down as a kid watching Linford Christie win the 100 meters, Barcelona 92, all of that fun stuff. Sting in the tail, though, and we'll get to it, is, I guess, has the Olympics been particularly good for Paris? We'll talk about it a bit later. First of all, STR highlight for the week. This one really caught my eye. I love this one. So, an article from Short Term Rentals, Paul Stevens. Valpass raises €4 million in seed funding for bed bug solution. Damien, have you stayed in accommodation and had the dreaded bed bug situation?
I have, actually. It was many years ago in Indonesia, in I think Jakarta, and I was pretty young at the time, but I had no idea what bed bugs were. And then you wake up to this like trail of bites, right, all across my legs and everything, and it was horrific. It was really, really awful. This is the only time I've experienced it, but I can imagine when they're in, and as an operator, you've got to do everything possible to get rid. And I know there was a big issue in France over the last year with this. So yeah, it's not good. So it's something that does need to be eliminated ASAP, but very bad.
It's a very, very much like short-term rental hotel problem, isn't it? All the people coming into rooms and using it. I first encountered it in my One Fine Stay days, and if we got the message that bed bugs had been found, it was like all hell broke loose. Actually, weirdly, I was looking last week. I was looking across the street. I was sort of spying on my neighbors, I suppose you could say. I wouldn't say I was so sinister, but I was spying on my neighbors, and they were all outside, and they had someone in fumigating the house, and I felt so sorry for them because they were all like, you have to sort of wash everything. Anyway, they're a scourge. They're a real scourge. This company, founded in 2017, have a tech-based solution, which I love. It's called like smart bed bugs. So you use the bed legs. You create smart bed legs, which capture the first bed bugs before an infestation breaks out. So then when the smart bed legs register the first few bed bugs, you get alerted via email. And then your housekeepers come and can empty the bed legs, clean up, and the solution is not, it doesn't use any chemicals, doesn't use any pesticides. How amazing is that?
This is an April Fool. Surely this technology cannot exist.
Well, I'll be really irritated if Paul's winding me up now. But isn't that phenomenal? I think, I as soon as I heard that, I thought I wanted to go and invest in that anyway, because I've got this phobia about something scratching you in the night and stuff. But yeah, like it's definitely something that we should all be thinking about investing in, and maybe we can get them on. Maybe we can get the guys from Valpass on at some point to talk us through how it works in more detail. But yeah, that really caught my eye this week. Before we get into it, my friend, I have to ask: have you been in Barcelona spraying people with water guns?
No, I have not, and not anytime recently. Considering we host a lot of events up in Barcelona, and I don't think it would be a good look. So no, I haven't been a host crowd. So no, I haven't.
Second question: if you were down in Nerja, in your hometown, and you saw tourists prattling around, would you be tempted to spray them with a water gun? Is that ever in your mind that's how you should treat a tourist?
Tourists prattling around. That's a very English phrase, Leo. Look, you get tourists prattling around at every place. I imagine like Miami to Marbella or wherever. It happens. So yes, they happen in Nerja, they happen in Brighton, they happen everywhere. This happens everywhere. But look, I guess we're going to get onto this conversation in a second, but that you have to remember what feeds the local economy, and tourists are a vital part of that. And let's not overnight kill that influence of tourism. Yet we can help shape behavior, perhaps, but not kind of demonstrate this hatred for tourists who are, many of which may have totally different intentions. They might be on a business trip, You know, if you're attacking somebody on a table for just having a meal or a drink, and blaming them for the lack of affordable housing in a city, or the likes, to me, this is shameful behavior. And you know, I think anyone who's missed this story of the last week or two has probably been under a rock. But for a group of like a few thousand people to be, you know, just squirting water at really innocent people who are just sitting and just enjoying themselves, enjoying a new city, or maybe not even a new city. You know, they could be even just be coming from down the road and having a meal with some friends. Shameful, totally shameful behavior.
Yeah, and I think that the fact that they couldn't easily identify them as tourists is a credit to Barcelona, because it's such an international place. So, you know, you wouldn't know if someone's there on business. You wouldn't know if they've relocated there. You wouldn't know if they're a digital nomad. But I guess that's also part of the stress on the city. It's not just tourists. It's just a very popular place to be. But yeah, we've talked about it a lot. I really wanted to have you on to talk about it as well, because obviously you live in Spain. Yeah, you've started to give us your thoughts, but you know, tell us a bit more about how it makes you feel, especially as a non-Spanish born person living in a Spanish city.
So, well, look, I consider myself European. I spend a lot of time in the UK, Ireland, and for anyone who perhaps doesn't know about the housing situation in Dublin, Dublin's where I grew up, and now there's probably very few cities in the world that are overpriced, where the housing market is so incredibly high. Nearly all young people are priced out of even finding affordable rent, let alone getting on the housing ladder. But I've never seen tourists be targeted in Dublin for this. There's constant conflict between, say, the people and, you know, housing ministers and the government. But that's where the argument and the conversation should be, not just blaming one really important influential factor on the economy within the country or within the city. I could never afford to buy a home in Ireland. I could never afford to buy a home in Brighton. These places have I feel like organically, naturally just gone up. House pricing has gone up monstrously over the last 10, 20 years. But, you know, and I have great sympathy with people who cannot find affordable housing. You know, it is a problem globally. But let's not blame tourists for this. You know, let's speak to the right people. Let's get more housing built. Let's challenge governments to find out why there is not more housing in general. You know, I think something that's really interesting. I saw somebody post on LinkedIn the other day about Barcelona specifically, and that there are a lot of foreign nationals that live in Barcelona. We know this, and I think I saw a figure of up to 25% of residents in Barcelona or foreign nationals. Very few people are blaming them for pushing house pricing up. But they're coming to Barcelona earning a salary that perhaps is from the US or the UK, which is probably a lot higher than the average Spanish or Catalonian wage. But and some, you know, this again naturally inflates the local housing market. But these people aren't being blamed. Why are tourists who are coming in for a few days being blamed? I just think there's so many factors at play here. It's not so simple just to squirt some water on innocent families, for example, who are coming in, who are, you know, quite possibly traumatized from this moment and just want to get out of the city, you know, straight away and never come back to Barcelona. So it's a terrible look for the city. It's a terrible look for Catalonia, for Spain, and I hope stories like this, you know, are limited over the next while, and the conversations happen in the right places with the government.
It's super aggressive, isn't it, to like attack somebody, and it's water, so it's not going to hurt anyone, but what it means, it's basically saying we don't want you in our city, and again, that is quite a scary thing, isn't it? And again, I think local areas, local mayors, and city planners need to be really thoughtful about how they attack the housing crisis and how they attack where people live and the services they access. There's no easy answer to complex challenges, and obviously that's part of it, isn't it? Is that sometimes a politician will want to give an easy answer. We've had a change of government in the UK, and I think it's fair to say there's a bit of optimism in the air, because this government is going to have a look at planning reform and see if they can get building more houses and just change the narrative around this housing crisis. And UK is a really good example, because you have to look, and Scotland's the same, right? You can't compare Edinburgh with the Highlands. You can't compare London with South Wales. They're different neighborhoods. They have a different makeup and different configuration. And, you know, each area has to take, I think each area has to be allowed the freedom to decide what its holiday let rules are in reaction to whatever's going on in that area. But let's be practical. Let's be pragmatic about it. You can't just say, oh, by the way, there's one element that's completely powering this housing crisis, because it isn't true. And then the other side of it is, clearly when you are a tourist in an area, you should be respectful, and you shouldn't be in an Irish bar singing on the table and offending locals. You know, so there is that. It has to be. I'm not saying you do that, Damien. You look guilty. You look.
Sorry about that. It was a one-off. I was having a great time.
He'll do it again, everybody. He will do it again. He can't stop. But no, like, so, you know, there's like a two-way street there, isn't it? So if I'd found out that people that were being rowdy had been asked to be polite, and I know that happens now in Europe, that it happens all over the world now. Signs go up and say, look, this is where we live, this is our neighborhood, be respectful. Then of course you got to be respectful. But if you're sat in a restaurant having a bit of dinner on a family holiday, and you're then being attacked, you know, it's very different. So I think we've all got to be careful about how we label people. It's not tourists are bad and locals are good. It's about sensible town planning. I talked about it last week. Density mapping. Where do you want your short-term rentals to be when you're planning out your city? Where do you want your hotels to be? How many visitors do you want? The mayor of Porto is our shining example here, who's, you know, whitelisted certain areas that he thinks need economic development, and that's where he gives short-term licenses, because he knows that the cafes, the restaurants around it will all improve. These areas will become more desirable, and then people will want to invest and buy in those areas. So, yeah, it is a real shame, because I think the narrative needs to shift on. Again, like, you know, it goes back to that point, which is there's no easy answer to complicated challenges, but when people want an easy answer, it's sometimes a populist politician can try and give them that answer. Has this made you think twice about whether you even want to host because your main event is Barcelona? Has it made you think about whether you want to bring that back to the city?
Yeah, well, look, we probably are going to have a hiatus for our Barcelona show for next year. Anyway, that was coming before all of this started. But yeah, look, it's difficult. I'm not sure if this would make us change any plans, but it just makes you think. You know, it makes you think about perhaps how welcome I am in Barcelona, how welcome our conference attendees are, even our partners that we meet in Barcelona regularly. Do we want to be kind of aware, for example, of sitting out in a nice terrace cafe, for fear of looking over your shoulder, or being targeted, or even just being looked at in the wrong way. So, look, I don't think it's going to make a difference to where we go with scale, but even the fact that we're having this conversation means that there are going to be a lot of people who are going to consider whether they go to Barcelona, whether, regardless of business, even visiting for a couple of days. And I think that conversation is kind of sad.
Yeah, I agree. No easy answer. Again, I think there is movement within the European Union. There is plans afoot, I think, to give more autonomy to cities to sort of set their own rules a little bit. This is kind of what I'm reading, which is really interesting. So if you're an STR operator, in one of the smaller cities, you might just find that you see the benefit of areas of your city saying, we want more tourists, we're going to give out licenses, and we're going to encourage it. Or I think I said this last week, sorry to repeat myself, is people come maybe just to the big city for a couple of days and then go out to the countryside, rural, coastal, secluded areas where tourists are more welcome. But it's funny because it might just be that actually there's a problem just around your central core of your city. So sensible density mapping could really take that out. Get people in the suburbs, get people in the outer cities around it, and suddenly you've brought economic development without adding to the congestion. Look, I don't have all the solutions. Obviously, it's all I'm just commenting, but I just think it's interesting, and I wonder if we'll start to see this trend of smaller cities around bigger cities becoming the place that people want to go to and try and have a few days, and then the trend moves on, doesn't it? Oh my God, you've got to go to Barcelona because it's awesome. That was that. And here's the architecture, here's the art galleries, and then suddenly it moves on because everyone's Instagramming and talking about different things on social media of different areas they've tried. So be careful what you wish for if you run a city, because the crowds might not necessarily come back. And something like taxation is probably a more effective way of doing it rather than squirting people with water pistols, I'd imagine.
I think there's a lot of solutions out there that are better than water pistols. I think we're all agreed on.
Yeah. Let's talk about Paris. Let's talk about the Olympics. God, I love talking about Paris. I'm going.
Can I interrupt you 1 second? Just as you said that, I've just noticed there's a Paris book behind you on your unit. Yeah, look at that. Over your right shoulder. There you go.
Yeah.
So you are
one of Jasmine's probably. I've not read any of these books. No, you're right. No, we love Paris. I've said this before on the pod. We love going to Paris. So I'm really interested in this. The big question, I think, swimming around at the moment, and I know you've got a contact in Paris who's involved with scale. Does a city like Paris need to host the Olympic Games? Like Airbnb have done a wonderful job of sponsoring these type of events. They get close to, like they've done Edinburgh Festival in the past. They've now been sponsoring the Olympics since the Tokyo one, and they've done a fantastic advert. I don't know if you've watched it. It's great. I think it's really cool. It's cheeky. It's sort of showcasing what's best about our industry, right? Get away from the touristy hotels and get into the real Paris. We say that all the time. Try and live like a local. And so that's all good. But maybe the tourists haven't come. And I guess, thinking about Olympic Games, maybe a city like Paris is popular enough already that perhaps this isn't going to be quite the hit they want it to be. So I was reading another article in Skift about this, that sort of less than 15% of the projected roughly 11 million Olympic visitors will be foreign. So really great for locals and fantastic that people want to come and watch the Olympics in their own country. I watched a lot of the London stuff, but the international visitors don't seem to be coming. And there's a lot of supply in Paris right now, which leads me to think that there might be quite a lot of disappointed hosts. What do you know about this?
Oh my God, I've so many points to raise, and hopefully I can remember them all from what you've just said. So, look, you and I are both big, massive sporting fans, and something like the Olympics, I went to several events in London as well in 2012, and it was amazing. I live in Brighton though, so it was easy for me to come up and to go up and down to several days, which I'm kind of gathering is the case for Paris too. That there's let me just say, actually, the ticket prices for the athletics, at least, is astronomical. I went on to try and book tickets on certain days when they were released, and they are prohibitively expensive for so many people. I think that is really important in terms of why potentially some guests have stayed away. But a huge issue here is owners and managers who have overpriced their accommodation. I would say it's nothing short of scandalous. The greed of some operators and the money they're trying to get for those 2 to 3 weeks. And I know, so you referred to my colleague at Scale. So Gail from Perfectly Paris, she helps direct our Scale France event. In her words, I spoke to her the other day, it's a disaster, the Olympics. And for various reasons, mostly because there's still lots of availability on her properties because the owners won't budge on, hopefully I'm okay to say this, but owners won't budge on pricing because they expect to get, all availability fully booked at the highest premiums. But but there are other things going on. Like the metro, I believe, is doubled in price over the 2 weeks as well. And I just think the numbers are apparently well down on year on year, as how they have been in previous years in terms of international tourists. So I really don't think this has kind of sparked, the economy, and perhaps in the way the authorities would have wanted. This particular ad that you're referring to, when it uses a phrase, is it like "don't stay on the touristy side of Paris"? Was that it, Neil? I think something like that.
Yeah.
That to me is a really strange kind of introduction, anyway, because when you're using the word like that, touristy side of Paris, there's a negative connotation to the word tourist, and that you want to be away from all of the tourists. But yet this ad is focusing itself towards tourists. So in actual fact, we're saying you need to be away from the likes of yourself here. So like, what's the message is totally confused for me here. Yeah, we're trying to get them into a nice home, etc. But we're effectively saying, you guys are making this a little bit kind of too dense. And where you guys generally go are just the kind of really the too densely populated areas, and you shouldn't be doing that. Right? What's the message here? And I'm totally confused by using that touristy negative word as part of this ad. I think it could have been focused a lot better. So jury's out for me on the ad. I get the message. I get what they want to do. And more importantly, I think numbers are so significantly down, there's possibly a bit of desperation to book and to have as many properties booked as possible. So,
yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, and they've invested a lot in it and have not maybe not seen the bounce. And classic case of oversupply. They've gone and it's surprising in a place like Paris, because I think in Germany, where they've had the Euros until very recently, smaller cities have seen an absolute bounce. And Sarah's been in doing the data for us, and we'll get some reflective data next week about this, and we'll get some more Olympics data from Sarah when she's back. But these small cities that don't have a huge amount of hotels and aren't used to tourist footfall are having they're having a boom year. But maybe in a city like Paris, it just doesn't need it. At this point, I'm really pleased you've taken the conversation to this. Why are they sort of using tourists in a slightly negative context? I think this is a really interesting part about our industry in general, is that you stay in a short-term rental and you might end up being in a more authentic neighborhood just because that's where the housing stock is in whatever city or town you've arrived in, and you instantly blend in, right? You can walk down to the bakery and buy your bread. You can use the local restaurant, and undoubtedly in London, the suburbs, the cafes, restaurants in the outer areas. I'm zone 2, Stoke Newington. It's got trendier and nicer and better and more expensive, I guess, but not hugely more expensive. And I think that is in part due to like short-term rental tourism happening in those neighborhoods, as well as locals moving in and things like that. So you can say that it brings people to the part of a city where locals actually live. And there's something interesting about that. I don't know if it's a generational shift that younger people want to go on holiday and want to blend in and not be seen as a tourist. They don't want to have the big camera and get on the open top bus tour, right? So it's interesting that Airbnb feels so confident about that with its traveler that it can use that word in a negative context. And they probably do talk about it's been interesting that I don't think they ever talk about their customers as tourists. They probably talk to them as guests and travelers and stuff like that. But it's an interesting thing. I can tell you've got a marketing background, because I think you've really got to the nub of why that's interesting.
You definitely wouldn't want to be highlighted as a tourist in Barcelona anyway. But yeah, and one other thing as well, just talking about the hotel versus the home. So you and I, we will always have this, I guess, kind of conflict wherever we go somewhere. We should be staying in a short-term rental, but for 2 nights, if you're out all day, look, a hotel probably makes more sense, and quite often it is going to be cheaper than a full home, right? So I will often choose a hotel, and we'll possibly have people going, that's crazy. How can you be advocates for short-term rentals? But look, if you everything is price driven, But also, if you're out all day, like a lot of people will be for the Olympics, you're going to go to an event potentially all day and come back. I can understand people saying, I'd rather just stay in a hotel, because you leave the hotel, you come back in the evening, you just want quick bite to eat, and then you go to bed, and then maybe go out again for another event the next day. So I totally understand why people may not want a short-term rental home, especially if there's just one or two of them, they can just share a room. So I think we have to be
I think you're right.
Choice that people have and why they choose an accommodation.
And I think that maybe is more the case if people are only traveling locally, because they might just come in for one night, come in, watch your event and go back. So if the international tourists are staying away, and I was listening to Thibaut watch Thibaut do an interview, Thibaut Masson, short-term rental scale-up, do a bit of a video on this. The logistics around Paris, areas being closed off for events, like you wouldn't come to Paris unless you were coming to an event, because it just makes being in Paris less enjoyable if you're not engaging with the Olympics. And I think if it's locals and people from different parts of France coming in, they will just be coming in for a night. And so, yeah, you're right. They're probably happy with that simple accommodation option and not looking too much for it. And maybe then the answer is that just before the event, short-term rental hosts are going to start to drop their price, and they are going to catch people coming in, because then I think price is king more than anything else. You've probably paid a lot for your event ticket. You know that the metro is going to be more expensive, as you said. The restaurants may be hiking their prices, so you are looking for value for money. Very, very interesting. We'll touch on it more. We're getting close to that time now, so we'll have Sarah. We'll do some data on it. My friend, let me leave you with this question then. When you go somewhere, do you class yourself as a tourist?
That's interesting. I guess we all have a different definition of tourism. Generally, when I go somewhere for work, I don't have 1 minute to catch the sights or anything like that. So maybe in that respect, I wouldn't want to call myself a businessman. I think that's just ridiculous. Well, let's imagine. But no, I think I'm a traveler who goes somewhere, generally has a meeting, might meet with people for a couple of drinks or something, and I leave. Unfortunately, there will be times when I travel with my family, and then perhaps I am a tourist. So it probably depends on trip to trip. I'm not a tourist in Barcelona, though. Definitely not.
Yeah. No. But I think it's blurring, isn't it? And people that travel a lot for work, like we both do, and you see yourself as being very European. I'm still going to shout out that I should also be in the club, even though I am English. If you'll let me in, can I feel European too, please? But there is that blurring of I live and work in different cities. I can, I've got, we've got offices in different parts of the world. I feel like I'm part of this, European community. So I don't want to see myself as a tourist, but then the shoe on the other foot is clearly we are slightly but again, marketing wise, I don't think I want to be fed an ad which is about something really touristy. I think I want to be fed an ad about something that looks very cool that locals are doing. So just an interesting thought.
Yeah, well, look, I think if you go back even to Airbnb's tagline of live like a local, which goes back 10 years or so now, that almost implies maybe that there is a little bit of shame to being a tourist, where you do the typical things, and to be a real a discerning traveler, you need to be living like a local and doing what the locals do, and maybe that's even being exacerbated now. So maybe the phrase being a tourist is going to be something that people are going to shy away from. So I don't know. It's an interesting one.
It's an interesting one. I think you're right on that. I think it might be a word we all start to shy away from if this housing crisis being linked to tourism mindset continues, and over tourism continues to be a problem, which it clearly is. Living like a local, in true living like a local spirit, maybe we should go out and spray people with water guns, because that's what they do.
Getting pretty hot in Spain, so I think we could just do that to each other. Yeah.
Thanks, my man. Lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us today. If you're listening, watching, if you've enjoyed the show, please hit like, share, subscribe so we can keep doing it. Hosts in Germany hosting Paris. Tell us how's the summer been hosting the Euros and Paris host? What's your experience coming up of the Olympic fortnight? Yeah, we'll see you again next week. Thanks.